So if you are a vibe coder or doing a lot of agentic coding, one thing that you might start realizing is that your intellectual control over the code base, meaning how well do you actually understand what's going on, starts to slip away. And if you were to come into a stand-up or someone were to ask you how a particular piece of the system works, often you go blank because you let something else design it and build it for you, and all you did was prompt it and press enter, enter, enter. So one thing I've been doing a lot for not only my own side projects, but also at work, when you switch over to a new project, often you have to onboard. There's a lot of stuff you have to learn. There's a lot of new things you don't know about. Maybe it's in a new language. Maybe it's in a new framework. So what I would recommend doing to help bring yourself up to speed much faster is to let these agents kind of interview you, right? So pretend like this is a job interview and have the agent ask you questions about a particular service or a framework or a code base. Now I'm going to show you an example of using this approach for helping it teach me how the sandboxes kind of work. So let me just go ahead and prompt it. I want you to interview me and ask me one question at a time to truly quiz my understanding of the mission control agent. Something like that. You don't need a skill for this. Don't be lazy. Just prompt it like this. Okay, so what this is going to do is going to dive through your code base and try to understand what exactly the system does. And it's going to try to quiz you on the edge cases and all this other stuff. Now, I would recommend that you have it ask you actual questions that you have to respond in free text form. That's the best way to learn. I wouldn't ask it for like A, B, C, D responses. I don't think that's a really great way to really quiz your knowledge. Let's see how well I understand how this agent thing works. So the first question that is asking me is mission control runs on your desktop and talks to a remote VM over WebSocket. This is too much information. It shouldn't have gave me that information. So I'm going to update my prompt and say, do not lead the witness or give any hints in the system. I'm going to go ahead and just ask this real quick, because that should have been a question. It should have asked me, how does it communicate with the agent? Okay, so what is the mission control agent and what problem does it solve? The mission control agent is a service that runs on a remote sandbox, which allows the mission control Electron app to connect to it and talk to it for running remote commands and starting PTY sessions so that the user can actually run Claude code in this isolated remote sandbox environment. The problem it's solving is allowing the user to connect to the sandbox without having to SSH directly into it. Instead, it uses this sidecar control panel type of service to do that communication. And also, since we have the agent, we can have it communicate back to the mission control Electron app to have the Electron app update SQLite files and stuff based on WebSocket events. Now, the reason I was able to kind of respond with this much information is because I just used this prompt to help quiz me on the mission control agent. So I understand how it works and how the internals of how it all kind of works. Okay, so you nailed the core role, remote control plane for the PTY sessions and sandbox executions with bidirectional communication back to mission control. Okay, how does the agent decide whether to accept or reject incoming connection? When the mission control agent is ran, you have to provide a secret API key, and the Electron app has to use that key in order to successfully connect to it over the WebSocket handshake. Again, I added in the authentication for this. I should kind of know how this kind of works. All right, question number 3. Besides spawning and controlling terminal sessions, what other kinds of operations can mission control request from the agent over the same WebSocket connection? You can spin up terminal PTY sessions, and then also there are some remote procedure calls inside of the agent that the mission control can execute, such as creating files, reading files, etc. All right, question 4. When the agent handles file paths or get operations on behalf of mission control, what constraints does it enforce on those paths? All file I/O operations happen through a file guard, which prevents the agent from reading or writing from places outside of a workspace directory. Okay, so again, when the agent runs, it specifies what directory it has access to, and any additional type of file writes just can't go outside of that directory. Okay. Question 5. Mission control needs to receive events from processes running inside of spawn terminal sessions. How does that work on a remote VM setup? In the Electron app, when we spin up a terminal session, we assign a PTY ID and we send that over to the agent so the agent can assign that to the actual running terminal session so that if the mission control Electron app were to crash or restart, it can then just send over that ID again to get the latest information of the running session so it doesn't lose that state. Okay, so it says you described an important piece, but that's a different path than what I was asking. I'm not really sure what I was asking then. So question 5 follow-up. The agent's HTTP server does more than serve/health and upgrade WebSocket connections. What other HTTP functionality does it expose and what process calls it? So in mission control on the loopback address, the Claude and Codex sessions can use hooks to invoke the locally running agent on the loopback address over different API endpoints. And those hooks will then forward the event over WebSockets to the Electron client on a person's laptop. This is used for basically updating the state of the sessions from ready to in progress to running, etc. I'm going to stop here, but I would recommend to just have it keep asking questions until you feel confident that you understand how the application of the code works, or a subset of your system kind of works. And again, like I mentioned, you can do this at work. Let's say you get hired to a new company or a new job or new project. You have no idea how it works. Maybe it's in a new language or framework that you don't understand. I would recommend to sit here for like 30 minutes to an hour and just let it keep on asking you questions. You're going to get all the questions wrong if you're like getting onboarded, but it's going to explain to you why you are wrong. And you can even update that initial prompt that I gave. You can say, hey, if I'm wrong, I want you to explain why I'm wrong and give me some more information. Now, this video may be completely obvious to a lot of you people who have been using agents for a while, but I think new people getting into agentic coding may not understand how useful these tools are to help you get up to speed with learning how to code, understanding systems, and just improving your knowledge overall. So definitely don't sleep on this type of approach. I don't have a skill that I can release for you guys. Just literally copy the prompt. It's not that hard to write 2 sentences, and then you can make your own skill or MD file if you want to get quizzed on various parts of your system. If you guys have any other tips and tricks that you like to do for learning about coding with this new era of AI, leave a comment below. Other than that, have a good day and happy coding.